Hello,
Good evening.
It's Bec and Deb here, and we are, as always, putting the balance back into relationships. And oh my gosh, what a day we've had. I have no doubt that some of what we've been up to today will come out over the course of tonight's show. But we wanted to start by just sharing with you a couple of things we've got coming up. So you might be aware that we've got a mini mentoring program in December, and if you're not, we'll tell you a little bit about it. So we do a mentoring program that's usually about 3 months long, and it's a group program and it's online, and we have tons of fun. And we decided in the run up to Christmas, as a little gift, we would do a smaller version of that for just £30. 3 group calls for anyone that's interested in joining in, and we just have an absolute blast on those calls, don't we? We do. Yeah, we just usually they're around.
To be fair, we have fun with most of the things that we
true.
do.
Yeah, we have a blast with that. We have a blast with it. We just have a great time. Lots of fun. So that program is starting next Thursday, the 5th of December. And there's 3 set dates for those calls, and basically we're going to make those calls about whoever's actually joining in. If there's a particular topic or a particular thing you want to sort of look into over the course of those 3 calls, that's what we'll do. Yeah. So if you want a bit more information on that, you can go to our website, dareToBeYou.co.uk. We've already got, I think, a few people signed up, so it's going to be a lovely group. And
it's not even going to be a huge group, actually.
No, I think it's going to be
people, not loads. So
no, it's going to be a nice small group, and it will just, if you know, whether mentoring's been something you're interested in or not, it's going to be a fabulous program to be a part of. And then if it is something you've been interested in, it's a really great way to get a taster of how that works.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the other thing that we have got imminently coming up is our December retreat, our winter warmer. We kind of come out of a retreat, to have a conference, finish our conference, have another retreat. You know, this is the life.
The life.
Yeah, and the retreats are an amazing space, an absolutely, truly beautiful, safe, gorgeous space to just deep dive into this understanding, really, to kind of I don't know, to have some, to get out of your own life just for a minute and just to see something else, to kind of look and see what else there is, see the possibilities of life from the perspective of this understanding. And sometimes it's really, really nice to just step out of your own life just for a minute, to be able to see that, and kind of learn really how to see that even when you're in the midst of your life. So yeah, if you are interested in joining us, there aren't many spaces left, but we have got a few at our winter warmer retreat. It's at Countryways in North Devon, and we would absolutely love you to join us. So if you're interested at all, again, you can find out the information on our website, dareToBeYou.co.uk. You can, if you put a message under this video, I usually see them. My phone pings when people, you know, put a comment. You'll find us on Facebook. We're not shy. We're usually around somewhere. So if you've got questions or you want to book onto that retreat, we would absolutely love to have you with us. So, as usual, we are going to start this evening's show with our living and learning. So, Bec, can you share? Well, gosh.
Well, we've only got an hour, so probably not.
Blasted into space, I think.
Oh my gosh, just the last couple of weeks. I mean, we touched last week on, under our living and learning, a lot about the conference, and it just feels like in the week since the conference, just so much more has been coming out. It's actually been a really interesting house to live in over the last week.
It really has.
Me, Deb and Lou, Russ is away and Josh has moved out, so there's just the 3 of us in the house at the moment, and it's like popcorn. One of us is popping here and then another one's popping over here, and it's been a really beautiful week. I mean, I've been away for some of it. I've
been away too
in Sweden, and you were away,
and Lou was away,
and so we've actually haven't all been here, but even with the times when we have been here, it's been really beautiful over the last week with the stuff that's kind of popping for us. So I think for me, the thing that has really kind of come back again this week has been how much we can allow life to unfold for us or through us. It really feels like it's incredibly easy to get up in our heads and think that it's all on us to make life the way it's supposed to be. It's all on us to ensure that we've got enough money coming in, and that the right people are at the events we do, and that we live in the right house, and all of those things. We're laughing, and I think there'll be something that comes up as to why we laugh when we say about the house. But we've just so many times over the last week, there's been stuff that I've had conversations. I hung out with, for some of you that watch this might know Frederick, who was one of our speakers. I was in Sweden for a few days hanging out with him, and we had some incredibly nice, really beautiful, simple conversations about how this really works, and how many times we forget how it works and get lost and up in our heads again. And it was actually off the back of some conversations that I was having with Fred that we came up with our topic this week, because I came back and Deb and I were catching up, and we started talking about blind spots and nudges, and so that kind of gave us our topic. And yeah, it just feels to me like I'm really seeing all over again how much is done for us and how little we have to do when we think there's a lot for us to do, when we've got a lot on our mind and a lot of, I need to this, and I've got a spreadsheet here, and I've got money that doesn't look like it's appearing over here, and yet life just continues to come through us and just take us to just places we couldn't have imagined we were going to end up.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm struggling a little bit to put it into words, because it's so fresh, and it's just bubbling for me in lots of places. It felt like the conference really shook up the ground beneath our feet again, in terms of kind of,
in an incredibly beautiful way,
in a really great way. And I was going to say in terms of business life and personal life, and then I realized for me there's no difference between those two.
No.
And that was something I think really came out for me as I was having some conversations with Fred about, I was talking to him about friendships and how that's something I can get a little bit stuck on sometimes. And something he said that I don't even think he said, but what I heard was where kind of how my life's set up and how I live my life is actually those things aren't separate, like friendships and people I work with and my family and who I live with and how I work and how I live my life is just all one ongoing wave of life, and there is no separation between business and personal. So actually, when I said the conference has kind of shook the ground beneath our feet, I think on all levels in every area of my life, that's kind of continued to ricochet through the last 2 weeks for me.
Yeah, definitely. I think all three of us have seen something on a whole new level, and there's definitely an awful lot of things unfolding. You know, since the conference was one of the most beautiful, mind-blowing weekends I have, 3 days, whatever, that I have ever spent. It was just gorgeous. And then the week after the conference, you know, during that week, there was an awful lot of things bubbling and going on, and just some beautiful things happening. For those of you that know a little bit about me, you know, and my background, my thing has always been my family. You know, the kind of the reason that I came across this understanding, if you like, you know, what I was looking for and what was going on was because of the difficulties that were going on. I've got 2 daughters and a son, and the difficulties that I was having parenting them, and you know, the way that I felt my family was broken in a way, really. And kind of during the week after the conference, the amazing things that were happening within my family, you know, the closeness, the just some just really gorgeous moments unfolded. And then I went away. I went to stay with Maria and Ash, who were 2 of the speakers at our conference, and they were doing a workshop, and I went to be a part of that workshop, kind of speak and just be there, be in the room, be a part of it. And it just felt like another extension of, you know, what had been going on. And the really, really, really interesting thing for me was that we all had our family. Bec is my niece, just in case you don't know that. Our family, we come from a religious background. We were all brought up within a religion, and so I am really, really comfortable kind of referring to what you might see as the power behind life, what you might see as the intelligence of this universe. I'm quite comfortable calling that God. And I quite like to, I'm curious about the religion that I was brought up in. Made no sense to me during my childhood. I was just kind of like, I would see these people at this church, and it didn't make me come alive. I didn't really know why they kind of kept coming back there every week. I didn't kind of see what the draw was. It felt like sheep. It felt like, you know, they'd kind of got into it. It felt like habit, sheep. It felt like somebody had done something and everyone was just going along with it, and the spark, whatever it was, had gone out of it. And I think, you know, when I came across this understanding, I kind of saw where maybe religions had started, where somebody, you know, that fire, that spark within them had been ignited, and they had seen something. And for them in that moment, the best way to explain it, and, you know, the way that they went with it, was a religion. But it was that same kind of, that energy, that beautiful feeling, that amazing spark within each of us. So that's a really long-winded way of saying, you know, from that perspective, that is what I now see around God, really. And I'm not interested in a religion. I don't feel, you know, the principles and understanding the deeper truth of who we are, it doesn't feel like there is a whole set of rules and dogma that I need to follow. But it does feel as if there is an energy behind life. It does feel as if there is an intelligence that is on my side, if you like, a guiding intelligence that's on my side, that has my back. And what I have been really, really seeing, you know, over the time of the conference and during the week and over, you know, the weekend while I was away, again, it's kind of another way of saying really what Bec just said. I just began to see how little there was for me to do, how much this intelligence, this, you know, this system that we're a part of, this intelligence has our backs. Mm-hmm. And there is so much less for us to do. And what I've seen with my family, you know, with my two daughters, with my son, with my little grandson. My little grandson's really, really poorly at the moment. He's got a really nasty cough and cold, and he's quite poorly. But what I've kind of seen is when our children, you know, as a mum, or if you've got people you love like this, it's really, really easy to kind of get into our heads and just think, I have to be there for this person. I have to help this person. And we take it on, and really take it on in a way that it can become detrimental to us. You know, we take it on our shoulders. We feel that burden. And what I really kind of saw is, it's not about not being in service to those people. It's not about not being there for them. It's not about not showing up as love and caring for them. But that bit that kind of hurts our shoulders, that hurts our heart, that burdens us, that pulls us down, that's not ours. We do not have to take on that bit. That is for God, or the intelligence behind life, whatever word is comfortable for you. It's kind of like, we can pass that over. And it is only our own fear and misunderstanding. And, oh, you know, both hands up here, have I been inferior? But yep. When, you know, if we take a breath and kind of look, and we've been out today and we've walked along by the sea, and some of the things that we have witnessed out, the rock faces, the grass, the sky, it's been breathtaking, some of the you know, the places that we've driven through today. And this intelligence that we're talking about created that, and it kind of knows how to make a baby grow in the womb. It knows, there just isn't anything that it can't do. You know, it's pretty clever. And then we kind of get in our head, and think, I'm the one, I need to take this on, and the intelligence behind life can't do this. I'm the only one that can. And I think definitely my living and learning off over the past few weeks has been, there is something here that you can trust, and you absolutely, life is not about taking on those heavy burdens. Absolutely we can do it. Trust me, I have done it to death. I've done it so much that I've kind of pummeled myself into the ground trying to carry those things, definitely with my children, and the guilt that I hadn't done it right. But what's really been kind of coming to me is that no matter, when I'm looking at my children, I'm really in my head, I'm really scared, I'm really concerned, I'm really worried. I can trust this intelligence, and I can trust that they are a part of this intelligence. And in spite of what it sometimes looks like, they have this wisdom too. And this intelligence has their back. So, just in case there is anyone out there who is really concerned about another person, what I've really seen is, if I, from a place of love and trust, let go of having to take on the burdensome part of that worry, what comes from that is, it's amazing. And we're living, breathing proof. These shows, we do these week by week by week, and we talk about what is going on for us in this moment. We talk about our life, things that are unfolding for us right now. And Bec's got Andrew, her partner, we live together. I've got 3 children and a grandchild. There's stuff, we have stuff. We have
we continue to live and learn.
We have bills to pay. We have, that it's not like we're kind of these, we're not separate from you. If you are the other side and listening to this and kind of being, well, it's all right for you, because trust me, I have so many times looked at other people who seem to have a better business than me, a healthier family than me, whatever it is, those things that we kind of want for ourselves. And it's very easy to look at people and kind of go, well, you're talking about this, and you say some nice things, but if you knew what was going on for me, and it's all right for you because you have got blah 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 blah. I don't care what it is you think you haven't got. I don't care what it is that gets in your way like that. Look in this direction, and you will begin to see it's all right for you too. You have got everything that you need to find the answers to whatever it is that gets in your way.
I think maybe it's safe to summarize that what we're pointing to here is just a deepening of the trust that we have in life. When we kind of get onto the topic of blind spots, for me, it's about knowing that trust that Deb's just been kind of pointing to, that you've got everything you need in this moment. It's seeing that everywhere. It's really, and I think that's kind of what's happened for us in the last 2 weeks. We've really again kind of gone back to, oh, this is everywhere, this is everything, this is every part of our lives. And we kind of laughed a little bit earlier and said about our day, because we yesterday decided to just clear out our diary, just get everything that we were going to do today, apart from this show. Thankfully.
Yeah, we decided to keep on our YouTube show. Yeah, we did.
We kind of, changed appointments, took everything off the to-do list, and went out for the day, the 3 of us, me, Deb and Lou. And a couple of years ago, I would never have done that. With the amount of things that are technically on the to-do list, I would not have been able to do that, because it would have looked to me like, no, those things are on my to-do list, and that means I have to be doing them. And just the stuff that's come up in the last couple of weeks, we had a conversation yesterday, and it was off the back of Deb being with Maria and Ash, and them sharing one of the ways that they do some work sometimes is to periodically go out and have a couple of days just away from the office, away from events, away from people, and just let life show them stuff. like what do they, you know, where might they go next, what are the options on the table for them. And we kind of thought, let's play with that and do that ourselves. So we emptied our diary today and just went out for the day. With no real plan. I think we had 2 places in mind that we might go to, and we went to one of them, and then we went to about 3 or 4 other places that weren't on the roadmap. And we just, the things that came out over the course of today with what events we might do next, where we might live next, and we were laughing about that because we'd had a whole conversation about, like, we all live together and it's lovely and we love the communal living, but we want to do that in a slightly different way. And so we're just going to put it out to the universe and play the game as though it's up to us and see what comes. And over the course of today, with no plans at all as to how it might go, we've managed to find 2 new venues for events that we might be able to run. And somewhere we might be able to live, which potentially could fulfill all the ideas we have of how we could live together, and just all sorts of conversations in the midst of all that, of stuff that might come next. And like Deb said, because we were out, we were looking out, kind of, there was a couple of points where literally Deb stopped the car on the road and we were all kind of just looking out at the beauty, like breathtaking, undescribable beauty of the sea crashing against the shore. And you know, at one point we'd stopped and then a car starts coming by, oh, we've got to go, and there we all are trying to take our pictures. And it is just, we just gave ourselves the space today to go out and appreciate that. And we kind of had it in mind that if something was going to come, if there was something we needed to know about what next with life for us, then, you know, here we go, we've got the space to hear it. And if it was just supposed to be a day of hanging out, then that's good too. And it was just a whole massive combination of all of those things, and it was just a beautiful, beautiful day. And there's just, for me, there's no way I could have done that a couple of years ago. I just wouldn't have trusted that it was okay to leave my to-do list alone for a day and just go out and apparently just go out and have a load of fun. You know, it looks to all intents and purposes like we just went out for a day of all sorts of fun. And whilst it was loads of fun, it's actually amazing the things that are bubbling up already from where we've been and the conversations we've had and the ideas that are coming. And hugely, I think that's what's going on for us at the moment, is, again, really stepping into that place of trust, with that being the right thing to do today.
Yeah.
So
watch this space. I don't know quite what's coming next.
No,
but
but some really amazing possibilities were in front of us today. So our question for today's show is, how can I accept having that's such an interesting question, isn't it? Because we were actually listening, we listened to a little, 15-minute video yesterday, perhaps, was it about that?
Yeah, about that.
Muji, who was sharing about kind of choice and free will. It was actually something that was sent to us off the back of a conversation I'd had with somebody else. So we sat and listened to that last night. And the way he talked about kind of choice and control and that sort of thing was just perfect for where we were all at, actually. Because you've probably heard us talk before about it's all on the table. That's one of our phrases that we kind of like to throw out sometimes. And it really, today, was just a perfect example of that for us, because we kind of dotted from coffee shop to retreat venue to coffee shop to charity shop to coffee shop to church to coffee shop
as well. Went out for a beautiful walk.
Oh yeah, we had a really nice walk along to the sea, and just, we were kind of a little bit here, there and everywhere. And there was just so many things that appeared on the table in front of us, not the literal table, although we did have some beautiful,
some lovely things appeared on the table. Yeah,
there were some beautiful things that appeared on the literal table too. But in terms of life and where we can go, there were some amazing things that presented themselves. And what I loved about kind of how our day unfolded today was that one thing kind of presented itself, and then 5 minutes later it looked like that wasn't actually the best option, and then we went on to something else, and then another thing presented, and it was like, oh yeah, that's a good option, but maybe not for this, perhaps that could be for this. And so the day just went on, and it really looked to me that, like, there was so much of that wasn't in my control. There was so much of, like, the things that came out of today that if it had been entirely down to me to control, I wouldn't have gone there. Like the first place we actually stopped at because Lucy needed the toilet. And we were like, oh, while we're here. And again, 2 or 3 things came out of that visit. And if it had been, if I was in control of that, we wouldn't have stopped there for the toilet. There's other places I might have thought of, or I might have made her wait, and yet life just kind of guided us there. And so for me, it's not even about having to accept that we don't have control. It's knowing that if we need to be in control of something, we can do that. We can kind of have the experience of being in control. And when we don't need to, life's got this, and we can just sit back and trust that what's on the table in front of us is perfect. I don't know. Do you want to share some stuff around that?
It's definitely that, isn't it? It's the paradox. What I really saw is, a lot of the spiritual teachings, and definitely, I've heard people in the 3 principles community, and there's a whole kind of thing going on at the moment talking about non-duality and all kind, and if you haven't heard those words, don't worry about it at all. But it's kind of, and talking about, how we don't control our thoughts, and, what happens to us just happens to us. And during the conference, we had Emmy, a young girl with us who's 15, and she was kind of sharing her experiences of being brought up with this understanding, and how that how it's impacted on her life, and how basically how her life unfolds and the choices she makes in any given moment. And she was talking about hanging out with her friends at school and how they can have arguments and fall out, and how she sees that after an argument or something like that, and I don't think this is something she does very often, as in argues. I don't think that happens a lot with Emmy, but if we have disagreements with somebody, if that's kind of what unfolds, what happens for her is pretty quickly afterwards, she sees that she has the opportunity here to choose, and in her words, to choose love, to choose to love her friend or whoever it is, or she has the opportunity to carry on the argument. And she said, from her upbringing and from what she's seen, she always chooses love. It's like, and the argument can be gone as quickly, it's gone. There's no residue from it. There's no, and what I have seen, if you like, for people who aren't familiar with this understanding, I have loads of conversations with people who say, somebody did this, I can't forgive them, I can't forget it, I can't let go, I can't move on. And we do that with people outside of us, and we do it with ourselves. I feel this way and I can't let it go, I can't see anything different, I can't be different in this situation. And very much, when I was talking, when Emmy was on the stage and we were having conversations that we had off the stage and on the stage, she was kind of talking about these moments when she saw she had the choice. And very much for me, my experience has been around my relationships. I've seen moments where I've been at a crossroads, and it's like, I can do this or I can do that. So it feels to me the paradox of choice is that we sometimes appear to have choices and we sometimes don't. And a little bit like everything else we've been talking about, the way that we spend today and the way we live our life, it feels to me that somehow life comes through us, and what we, in every given moment, we can see what is unfolding in front of us as helpful or unhelpful. And this is definitely, the words that we've put on that is, it's all on the table. We can use the fact that we have choice against ourselves, or we can choose, like Emmy, when she spoke, she said, I had that moment to choose love in that moment with my friend. And it feels to me like every given moment we can choose, we can use the fact that it feels like we have choice to our advantage or to our disadvantage. We could kind of be in that moment, and yeah, it looks like we can be nice to our friend, but I'm not going to be nice to my friend who did this to me. I'm not going to be nice to myself because I'm useless or whatever it is. It feels like having choice or having no choice looks like we can use it in any given moment to our advantage or to our disadvantage. And what I have really, really seen is one of the ways, and this appears to me in many moments like it's a choice, and the more I do it, it feels less like a choice. It feels like the way life unfolds, but it feels like we can, the beginnings of it feel to me like I choose to see the good in my life. I choose love in any given moment. That's what I choose. And you know, one of the reasons that one of the courses that we did was called the Warrior's Journey was because I think initially those choices, even having a crack of light to see that that is a possibility, it can take courage sometimes. You know, it can take, I told some stories about the conference about within my relationship, making those choices, you know, having a situation in front of me that looked like somebody had done something that really wasn't good and I didn't like it. And it was like, what would love do here? What would you do if you were going to choose love? And kind of my thinking and my mind going, well, I wouldn't do that. He's been an arsehole. You know, doesn't look like a good idea to me. And then having the courage and the curiosity, maybe, or whatever it is, to look at, you know, what would love do here? And making that choice in that moment. So for me, kind of, how do I accept having no control? I think in those moments when we know we haven't got control, it's already accepted and it's perfectly fine. And there are definitely moments in my life where it appears to me that I have control. And I'm totally okay with the paradox of both of those things and choosing to love all of it.
One of the things that was kind of coming to me as you were sharing that was the area where it used to really kind of hurt my mind was that it appears we have no control over what kind of thoughts come in our head. And we talk a lot about kind of thoughts and how we work as humans with thoughts coming into our head. It appears like we have no control over what lands in our head. And like the other week, last weekend, when I was, actually it wasn't even last weekend, we're only on Wednesday, aren't we? So it was 2 days ago. That's how life's been the last few weeks. So 2 days ago, when I was coming back home from Sweden, because of where Frederick lives, I had to get a train into the airport, and Fred was going off to work, so we kind of walked to his work. I said goodbye and walked off to the train station. And getting the train in a country where I don't speak the language, straight away I started having some thinking about that. I started having, you know, what if I get the wrong platform? What if I get on the wrong train? You know, what if I haven't bought the right ticket?
The old anxious thinking,
all of that kind of stuff. And definitely, like, anxiety is one of those areas I can go to in those kinds of scenarios.
Yeah,
I can get myself into that. And it looked to me like I didn't have control over that. Like I didn't kind of sit down and go, right, a bit later, I feel like it would be helpful if I have some anxious thinking about the train. That just kind of, it was coming to me. Oh, what if you get the wrong platform? The platform we went on yesterday to get the train was this one. Go and check that platform. That doesn't look like the right words. It's, you know, Swedish writing, but it looks different words to what I'm looking for, you know. Go and have a look at the TV. Oh, that looks like the right words, but that's a different, you know, and all of that thinking's going through my head. And it doesn't look to me like I control that's coming into my mind. But it looks to me like where I do have that element of control, like Deb was saying, is if it's helpful to me to see it this way, I have an element of control as to how seriously I take that thinking. And what I noticed was happening for me was I was kind of going, if I get into that story and I listen to that thinking and I get carried away with it and I start to feel really anxious and worked up, I'm going to be way less clear on actually understanding what's happening on these train platforms in a foreign country. I'm going to, you know, my mind likes to look at stuff from the clearest space it can. And I generally get the right answers or go the right way when my mind is clearer. So I'm just going to let that thinking do what it does. And I'm going to trust that if I'm meant to be on the right platform and get on the right train, that's what's going to happen. okay, there's my TV. That looks like a word that says something like Copenhagen, which is the direction I want. I'm going to go to that platform. Get to that platform. I see the screen that says these are and it's got a little aeroplane. I know I'm in the right place now. I'm getting on a train that's got an aeroplane drawn on it. I'm heading for an airport. This is good. And all this time I had to go, and even though it says that, they might have put the wrong instructions on the board. I've been on trains before where they've done that. They've put the wrong name on the platform. And all of that thinking is happening for me. And underneath that, I'm just trusting that I can choose whether or not to get into that story. And I don't, and I just get on the train and I'm like, I'm on a train that's got a little aeroplane picture on it. That's helpful. They obviously know someone's going to get on the train that doesn't speak Swedish today, so they've drawn an aeroplane for me. Thanks very much, Swedish people. That's great. And then I noticed that my body's doing a little bit of, I'm breathing a bit heavier. I'm carrying a suitcase, so that, I'm physically running up and down steps with a suitcase and stuff. So I'm exerting myself a bit, and I can feel that there's more thinking in my head than is usually comfortable. But I'm just gonna sit down and trust that if I'm on the right train, I'm gonna make my aeroplane. And if I'm not, then I'm supposed to stay in Sweden for an extra night, maybe, I don't know. So I just kind of sit down and let my body get back to its normal breathing pattern. And that for me is kind of the accepting where I have control and where it appears I don't. It didn't look like I controlled whether I got into that kind of story of getting the right train, but it looked like I had enough control to say, I'm just going to let that story run through my head and carry on looking for the train and get on it and see what happens. And for me, that is hugely helpful, because I don't live in that space very often, thankfully. But when it happens, it can be so compelling to go down the route of, what train is it, and try and talk to someone and try and, I could have ran over every single platform to see if I was on the right train, but it just felt more sensible to get on the train. It had the little aeroplane. That was a good sign in my mind, and to just let my thoughts quieten down and my breathing slow down. And I really see that to me is the place where there is some control, that paradox Deb was pointing to. There's an element of control here. We've been given a human experience so that we get to have that. We get to have that element of control. And it always kind of comes back to me in those moments that I have innate wisdom. And I can trust that, I've gotten trains a number of times in my life. I can trust I know how to read, even if it's in a different language, the kind of clues that tell you, it was at the right time, it was going in the right direction, there was other people on there with suitcases, so they were probably heading, there's lots of things that my wisdom's kind of picking up and going, get on this train, Bec, it's fine. And then I knew that even if it was the wrong train, I would have wisdom and know what to do then as well. And I think for me, knowing that there's an element of control in there somewhere, there's a place where I can choose how seriously to take my thinking. And then there's this innate wisdom that lives in every one of us, every single one of us, that knows what to do when I've got that level of thinking going on. And I think that's, for me, that's so helpful when it looks like I don't have control over my kind of that anxious thinking I was getting. Somewhere in there is something that's helpful for me.
I don't know whether we're supposed to be moving on to the next.
Well, in a couple of minutes, if there's something else on that.
Well, there's something actually that happened for me today that Bec doesn't know anything about. And but it's again with that, I think, kind of the how do I accept having no control. And I think, that question came from a place where someone was feeling anxious about something. So I'm going to share something really crazy that happened to me today. And the fact that I'm even sharing this was something I'm feeling a little bit of anxiety even sharing it. But I think this is kind of it's that thing of knowing that the feeling that we're in is going to pass. And no matter what happens to us, we are okay. And what I can honestly say is there would have been a time in my life where what happened to me today I would have been so embarrassed and so in my head about it and so caught up in my thinking about it that A, there would have been no way I would have shared it on YouTube, and B, I don't know, I think it would have just stayed with me for a long, long time. And the only reason, literally the only reason that I didn't share it with Bec and Lou today was because by the time I got back to them, I'd forgotten about it. So we were in one of the places that we stopped today, an absolutely really beautiful place called Widmouth Manor, actually. And I needed to go to the loo. So I went upstairs, went to the ladies' toilets and went in there, and I went into my cubicle and, you know, was doing what we do when we need to go to the loo.
Doing the business.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Kind of went into my cubicle, locked the door, started doing. And then the next thing, and Bec said she needed to go to the loo too. So, you know, I was aware that in a couple of minutes, like, Bec was going to come into the ladies' toilets. So I heard the door open, so I thought, oh yeah, that's Bec. And the next second, the door of my toilet opened, and a lady burst into my toilet, and I'm kind of just sat there in a way that you don't ever want anyone, another human being, to kind of see you, you know, that place. And she just kind of looked at me and was like, oh, I'm so sorry, and kind of dashed back out. And I sat there and was like, and this was the moment where I could literally see all my thinking crowding in on me, how stupid I am, oh my gosh, you know, what a place to be seen in, whatever, you know. I think my thinking started to go absolutely bonkers that this had happened. And then the next thing, I just burst out laughing. And then the lady, she'd gone into the cubicle next door and she started laughing and she went, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And I just said to her, do you know what? There would have been a time when that would have ruined my day, you know, I would have been really overthinking this and really getting into my head about it. And I said, it was really nice to meet you, actually. I said, how hilarious, you know. I said, oh, it's just one of those things, isn't it?
What a way to bond.
Yeah. And, you know, that's what happened. And then by the time I was washing my hands, I was kind of smiling about it, and my heart had stopped beating like out of my chest, and I just completely calmed down. And as I said, by the time I'd walked back down the stairs, I'd completely forgotten it had even happened. Yeah, and I just see, you know, it's so easy for us to get into our thinking about those things and berate ourselves or get so caught in those moments. And what it looks to me like is the more that in those moments, it looks to me like it's really, really useful for it to appear that I have the control to choose not to get into my head about that. And equally, if I do get into my head about it, there is no point going to a place of being angry with myself. You know, my heart did start beating out of my chest. I did feel stupid and embarrassed and like I wished I was anywhere on the planet but there in that moment. But then it was like, in that same moment, it felt like I had some choice. And it feels to me that that comes from an understanding of the truth of who I am, that my okayness, you know, hasn't gone anywhere, didn't go anywhere even in that moment, even when I was caught in that position. Nothing actually bad happened to me. And yeah, I just kind of wanted to share that the choice thing for me is have choice when it looks helpful. And if it looks like you haven't got choice, that's fine too. Just in any given moment, no matter what is happening, even if you've been caught like I was today, like that, even in that moment, okayness surrounds you all of the time. And whether you feel as if you have control or don't have control, just use whatever it is you do have in any given moment to help you and to be of assistance and to be a good thing, whatever it is. And I don't know whether that was helpful to share or not, but there you go.
That was a great story. I can't believe you didn't tell us when you came back from the toilet. That's actually, I think, a really nice place to lead us into our topic, because our topic is blind spots and nudges. And this, I think this came off the back of hanging out with Fred at the weekend, Fred and I have a lot of conversations about our blind spots and kind of trying to shine a light on them a little bit and see something differently. And then when I got back, we were catching up and I was sharing a bit about kind of what we talked about over the weekend. I think you were doing similar, and we kind of thought actually blind spots, and kind of it looks to me like when we've got a blind spot, when we've got somewhere in our life where we don't see the okayness, where we don't see how perfect that is, the universe nudges us. It kind of gives us little here until we practically fall over with the nudges that we're getting for us to see something different. And I mean, that's a prime example, isn't it? Like, I think most people would probably agree somebody barging in when you're on the toilet is really embarrassing. But that's a blind spot. That's an area where we haven't seen our okayness. And for me, like, I love the blind spot thing. I love kind of bringing it into the limelight and kind of looking at it under a microscope a little bit and being like, okay, if that's an area where it feels to me that it's not okay for that to happen, then at some point the universe is going to give me a nudge to start to see where it is okay. And I know the thing that Fred and I were particularly talking about was actually bringing that blind spot out into the open and going, okay, I'm ready, whatever nudges you've got, whatever you can share with me to see this blind spot differently. And I know for the longest time relationships was a blind spot for both of us, and that's definitely kind of where this understanding came into its own for us. But I know one of the things we do a lot in our lives is kind of put it out to the universe when there's something that we're going, well, okay, so we see that life's perfect and we see the okayness over here, but over here it looks like, that looks like a solid brick wall. It looks to me 100% like that can't work any differently. And I know we did this around money and around kind of how we run the business. Okay, let's just put it out to life, the universe, God, whatever you want to call that. And let's see what comes back, because nothing is a solid brick wall. There's nothing that can't be seen differently. There's no area where we can't have an insight. So for me, definitely, when I have a blind spot, and I'm kind of doing this a little bit at the moment with something that's been a bit of an area for me. And I think I won't share it yet, because I think what will be interesting is to share that when something's already bubbling, because I've put it out there to go, okay, I want to see this in a different light. But I really see how much the universe kind of nudges us, and that is definitely what was happening for me when I think I've shared a little bit before about kind of my story and how I got into a position where I was working for someone and I got into a very unhealthy relationship, and for over a year, the universe was nudging me and going, get out, this isn't helpful, I'll give you a way out, I'll give you this exit route, I'll show you this door, climb out the bloody window. The universe was kind of doing that to me for a long time before I went, oh, all right, I need to do something different here, I need to see this differently. And that just, I think for us, the way we play with this and the way we talk about this, we are looking for those nudges, and we're kind of going, I'm all ears, anything you've got. I've got an open heart and I've got open ears and open eyes. Show me anything at all. And that was massively a part of what today was about for us, wasn't it? About stepping out into the world and going, okay, we're out and about just having fun. If there's stuff we need to know, if there's something we're not seeing about how our life is working, give us a nudge, give us a note, send us an email, drop us a line, whatever way you want to communicate. We're open to hearing if there's something we're not seeing. And for me, it looks like it takes some courage to look our blind spot in the face.
Yeah.
But when we do, oh my gosh, the things that can change and shift and happen. And
absolutely. What I have seen time and time again is there is areas in our life, and I definitely know that I spent a lot of my life feeling like there were certain things you couldn't even talk about. You couldn't even say the words, because saying the words could make it happen, and it was too scary. And what I've seen about the scary things in our life is that they are smoke and mirrors. And the other side of our greatest fear is our greatest freedom. And I kind of have personal experience of that. I'm not talking about that in, I've heard somebody else say it. I have seen in my own life the freedom that I now have from looking at the things that scare me absolutely the most and kind of going, okay, let's look there. In, looking at our dark corners, looking at the place, kind of putting my hands up, like, I suppose, like today, sharing that story with you of that thing that happened to me today. It's kind of like, that would have been one of those things I'd be like, yeah, I just don't want people to know that about me. I don't want people to know that happened to me, and I definitely don't want to share it, and definitely not publicly, and definitely not on YouTube. But what I see now is that when we share our darkest thoughts, our deepest, darkest fears, when we kind of shine a light on them, it actually sounds, when I think about that now, it sounds hilarious.
Just Deb to make friends with someone that pops her head into the toilet with her.
It's something else comes out of the other side of our deepest, darkest fears. And I know, when we get scared, when we get anxious, it is perfectly normal as a human being to be scared of stuff. And it's kind of like, and often it's useful, we have reasons why it's like that, and it's absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong with you if you get incredibly anxious about things. You're normal, you're welcome to being human. It's kind of what happens to us. But I think what we tend to do when we get anxious like that is we're scared of the fact that we're anxious. Like, to me, it doesn't scare me that I get anxious. It's cool that I get anxious in that way. It's perfectly good. I'm totally good with that. I'm totally good with my heart beating and my whatever happens in my body. Yeah, that's kind of, it's part of what happens sometimes. And I don't think we're going to kind of move around in this world that we live in and see the things that we see without having those experiences. But it's worth it, those experiences. I would rather have and accept and just allow those experiences to happen than to kind of say, no, I'm just going to stay at home in my room because I can't do that. And to be honest, we can have those sweaty palms, heart beating, terrifying moments, even in our own home, even in what appears to be the safest place. And for me, it's kind of like looking them right in the face, those things that do appear to be, if we are really frightened of things in that way, and sometimes I don't even know what my thinking is when I get into those spaces, but somehow there is a way. And I loved it when Bec was saying about, we have an open heart, we have it. And I don't know, I think Bec has said this before. I think it's Bec that I've heard saying it, use your heart ears and your heart eyes. And it is, and I don't know exactly what that means, but it resonates with me. And I'm sure, if you don't know exactly what it means, play around with it, because very much, one of the things that we do, one of the reasons that we do challenges, one of the reasons that we do stuff is because it feels like as human beings, we can know what it is like to go inside ourselves. But you have to play with it. You have to play the game. You have to do it. And somehow when we are curious and when we are open to looking those blind spots, looking at our anxiety, whatever it is, looking at something that terrifies us, somehow when we look there, it turns out that it was smoke and mirrors, and maybe not in the way that you think it is. And I think that's one of the things very often when we get into these spaces, when we are afraid of something, or when something is a blind spot with us, if we're aware that it is a blind spot, somewhere in us, we think we know what the answer is. And so if we do look at it, we're looking for what we think we already know, if that makes sense. And what I have seen again and again and again is, if I look at it with my heart eyes and my heart ears and accept that it is a blind spot, or I am frightened or I am anxious because I feel like I don't know, It's okay not to know. And looking at it somehow, as I said, the other side of our greatest fear, the other side of these blind spots, the other side of these places we don't want to go and we don't want to look towards, is our greatest freedom in so many ways, in ways that are beyond anything that we can even imagine.
Yeah, it feels to me like the kind of what we're talking about here is there's some courage involved in almost kind of taking that first step to, like, it's almost just by acknowledging that it's a blind spot for you, or accepting that there's some difficulty that you're struggling with, is the very first step that you have to take. And yet we only have to take that first step. Somehow, like what we've been talking about over today's show, about this kind of how life works and how the universe works through us, we almost only have to do this bit, like the very first bit, which is, okay, there's a blind spot here, or okay, this is something I'm not seeing, with a really open and honest heart. If we just do that first teeny tiny bit, the universe does the rest for us. And I think that somehow we haven't been told that. Like, we get taught in schools and, you know, with jobs and from our parents and from our families, that life is hard and we have to strive to get anywhere. And nobody ever tells us that with an open heart, looking, like Deb says, right in the face of whatever it is that we're afraid of or that's got us trapped, is pretty much the only thing we have to do. And then the universe just lays everything out on the table for us, and then it's ours for the taking. And it's that first step, that first kind of moment of, okay, I'm going to be brave enough to look at my blind spot and just let the universe bring the nudges and the guidance and the wisdom and the what next. And it just becomes, I don't know, something about our blind spots just immediately start to become lighter and start to feel like Deb said with that moment on the toilet, like within a minute it was like, oh yeah, that's actually really quite funny. There isn't anything here, you know, that I need to be different about, and I'm just human and so is she, and life goes on. And I think it's just, we're just constantly, like, those nudges, for me, the other word that we use for those is invitations. They're just invitations to see something slightly differently. And the tiniest, like, crack of light actually can just burst through the darkest, most frightening of moments for us. So it's just a continual invitation to be open to seeing that.
And what I'm seeing around those nudges is those invitations. They're a little bit like a sat nav. When I went away at the weekend last, Thursday, Friday, whatever it is, whenever I went away, I drove to Maria and Ash's house, and I'd never been there before. So I put it in my sat nav, and telling my left from my right isn't my strongest point. So I'm driving along on my sat nav, and I went the wrong way 3 times, very near where they live. I don't know the streets. I've never been there. So it's kind of saying turn, and then I make a turning and I'm like, did I get it right? Did I get it right? And then it's kind of recalculating. But what I love about my sat nav is I could have kept on driving all night, and my sat nav would have just kept giving me the next step to get to Maria and Ash's. And even if I'd have kept going in the wrong direction and kept going away from it, my sat nav would have just continually kind of said, turn here, do this, make a U-turn, whatever. It would just keep, without any judgment and without getting annoyed and frustrated with me, it would have just kept giving me that, you know, we'll try this then, or, you know, do this, we'll turn this way then. It just will keep recalculating. And I could have gone miles and miles and miles and miles out of my way, and it would have just kept doing that. And what I see with these nudges from the universe is that's what they're just the same as that, you know, however far off our path, however far, you know, however much we do something wrong, however ridiculous, however anxious we've got, however tied up in our life, however stuck in our thoughts we are, just without any judgment, without anything, it's just going, come on then, come on then, come on then. It just continues to offer that in a most So I don't know. Oh my gosh, yes. Oh,
just
but
every
where
week
does
we do this
time
show,
go?
and within 5 minutes it's over.
Yeah.
And yet supposedly we've been on for 59 minutes. So who knew? Time certainly does fly.
It does.
So yeah, as always, there's plenty of ways to kind of connect with us and be in touch. We love to get your questions and topic ideas. So do kind of, drop us a message if you want us to talk about anything in particular. And there's also ways you can work with us on paid programs. We mentioned at the beginning the retreat that's coming up next weekend and the mini mentoring that's happening through December. And then we've started bubbling with ideas for the new year already. So if you're not on our mailing list, join our mailing list.
There's going to be a facilitator training in there at some point.
That's going to be super exciting.
Spoiler alert!
And ordinary, the 3-month mentoring program will be coming up, and because of some of the places we've been today, no doubt there'll be some more retreats next year. So there's just lots and lots of ways to kind of work with us and be in a room with us and hear more of this if it's resonating with you and you want to know more. For sure, join our mailing list, join our Facebook group. All of those are under Dare to Be You. So we're pretty easy to find, and we'd love to have you with us for something.
So we are going to be back next week at the same time live on YouTube, and the question that we're going to be answering is, how do I deal, I'm going to sneeze, with shyness and anxiety? How do you deal with having a sneeze in the middle of how do I deal with shyness and anxiety? And we are going to be, our topic next week is a pretty similar one to this week, but we're going to be talking about choice and free will.
Yeah.
So diving deeply into those things.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much for joining us. Can't wait to see you next week, and maybe even before next week somewhere.
Yay. Have a great evening.
Bye for now.